All right. So excited to bring you our guest today, Bill Dorenkott, who is the Director of Swimming and Diving at the Ohio State University. With 34 years of college coaching experience, he's entering into his 17th season, I think maybe 18th. I'm forgetting what we said on the call, at Ohio State, and his eighth as the director of the combined men and women's programs that are consistently among the very best in the Big Ten Conference. Under his leadership, the Buckeyes have become a dominant force, both the men and women's teams finishing second at the Big Ten Championships in 2024. And this year, the women in 2025 won. Going undefeated in dual meets, 7 straight seasons, both programs have finished in the top 3 at the conference meet, and they've made waves nationally. Bill has won Big Ten Coach of the Year multiple times, longest tenured coach in the conference, and has been in the Big Ten Conference. He was at Penn State prior for over 30 years. He's also, shifting gears, he is also a sports dad of 4 kids who his youngest son just finished in his graduating high school, literally as I record this. So my relationship with Bill started back when I was a high school swimmer. He was coaching at Penn State, and I went to what we now refer to, if you're an Ohio State Buckeye, the team up north, right? Went to University of Michigan and swam there. So finishing my collegiate career and kind of entering into the space of work that I do now, we had the honor and opportunity of kind of reconnecting in 2021, the fall of 2021, when Bill reached out about inquiring about support for the women's program, performance consulting, and taking this concept of the whole athlete initiative and bringing it into the program. And since then, so started working with the women, and that next season pulled in the men as well, and as well as the diving program, and I've been walking alongside of them since. It is an absolute honor to be allowed in and have access to a collegiate program, and one that just embodies excellence. And so this conversation, we really don't talk about the work that we do together. We really put on our parent hats, but I pull on the things that he's learned from his perspective of being a coach and being a director, and then this changing landscape of NIL and what all this means. And so I think that I think that you'll really enjoy this conversation. I certainly did, and the different perspectives and places that we go. And one of the things that I think is so important to be modeled for us as well as parents, because none of us are going to get it right or do it perfectly, is the ability to look back, as Bill references a few times, and just kind of acknowledge, yeah, like knowing what I know now, I would have done that a little bit differently. It isn't that the way of growth. So I really encourage you to dial in if you have any questions. I'll put all the links and contact information in the show notes. But yeah, I'm excited to share this with you. So let's do it.
All right. So here today with Bill Dorenkott. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you for joining me. I personally know that your schedule is so incredibly busy. So thanks for taking the time for this conversation.
Thank you, Sam, for the opportunity to share.
Yeah. So before we get into the questions, this is the Real Talk for Sports Parents podcast. And I have the opportunity and honor of now for the last, if I count out how many years, right? 3.5 years.
That's correct. Yeah.
Of being able to work alongside of you. And it's such an honor. So this is a cool conversation to have, as both of us are parents of 4 kids at different stages.
Yeah.
And so with all the different lanes of the people that I love to bring into this space to talk to, they wear different hats, right? So some are coaches, some are experts in their area of whatever it is related to either parenting or in terms of sport. And then others, athletes, former athletes. And then those that are, did I already say coaches or sports parents? So you look at all 4 of those and you like literally check every box. So we can just blend them all together. You can speak to one that feels more strongly connected to than others. But really, all of those experiences shape who you are in the world, right? Like every one of those. So
yeah, a lot of hats.
A lot of hats, yes, and they all impact each other too, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I like to start out the conversation by asking you to share a little bit about your cultural upbringing and background and how that shaped kind of how you see the world and who you've become.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm a Cleveland native, born and raised, and one of 3 children. Mom and dad, straight up blue collar, middle class family. Dad was a union sheet metal worker. My mom was a nurse until My parents had children, and she stayed home with the kids. So I have two younger sisters. Um,
I didn't know you the oldest. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so we moved out to the suburbs when I was in the second grade, and kind of a upper middle class city, really nice place to raise a family, and had a pretty typical childhood, involved in every sport under the sun, and definitely athletics in our family was kind of how we expressed ourselves. And so
Totally.
my grandfather was one of 13, and his father had emigrated here from Germany and settled in Cleveland because that's where the work was.
Mm.
And so most of the work was based around, blue collar industrial type work. And, as you kind of moved up through the ranks, you moved out to the suburbs. But one of the ways that you kind of elevated, socially was through athletics. And so it was
Mm.
always part of our family or DNA. And that was kind of both sides of the family. So I have probably 13 cousins that played Division I football. I have
Oh
a
my
great
goodness.
uncle that was an Olympic speed skating coach.
You-
I have a cousin that was a pitching coach for the Boston Red Sox. My dad was an exceptional athlete, and so it just was that was a big part of who we were, and to be able to be doing this, all these years later is really a blessing.
That's so fun. Holy, what were like board games and competitive pickup backyard games like growing up? A little competitive there or
There
what?
wasn't a lot of patience, right? Like
Totally.
like I was not the
Yeah.
best student. And I just remember like my dad trying to help me with math, and it was like talk about frustration.
Oh
Yeah,
my
just
goodness.
yeah.
It's so 13. You said 13 on one side. Like that's similar to my grandfather. And similarly, like sport was just part of the fabric of life, right? Growing
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So for you, your sport, you played a bunch of sports and then how did swimming find you or you find swimming?
Well, I started school a year early, and in retrospect, that was a huge mistake.
Mm,
I didn't have a lot of academic role models,
mm,
and then kind of lagging my peers physically, mentally, emotionally. You get pigeonholed, right? And so I,
mm,
I wasn't a strong student, and as you got older, being bigger and stronger in sports like baseball and football and basketball, that
mhm.
was kind of the divider. And so I had a need to be good at something. And I found swimming kind of later in high school. And the thing that really appealed to me about it is it was a direct one-to-one correlation. The more you put in, the more you got out, right?
Well,
So it
and it's
was,
you and you. It's
yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah, it was
yeah,
you against the
yeah,
clock, right? And
literally.
so I
Yeah.
also this is a bit of a segue, but I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional home. My
Mm,
my father was an alcoholic. My sister was bipolar and schizophrenic,
mm,
and so swimming was a safe space.
mhm,
One, and two, it was a place to take out a lot of
mhm.
just whatever was built up inside. And so it was just it was kind of the perfect thing at the perfect time.
That's amazing. Well, and now
Yeah,
it like we talk about, and I've got behind me, right, for those that are watching, it's like the scale. We talk about that. We talk about the accumulation of stress and trauma. Exactly that. So swimming was this like massive outlet to move that stress and trauma through your body. Same, right? So many similarities in our journey and story. And you say success humbly. When I was looking at like reading your bio word for word, I'm like, how many conference titles did you have? Like, holy cow. Yeah. So will you share a little bit about the athletic journey for you and whatever pops up as far as, our audience is going to be coaches, maybe some athletes in the backseat listening, and then mostly, right, sport parents. And I think hearing how people arrive at like how the journeys unfold for different people is so important because we can get so stuck in this idea that it has to look this one way and there's like these steps. And especially now, I think I feel as a parent, and I'm curious if you did too, just this like you got to get on the train of achievement and it's like it's got to be here and it's got to be this way and it's like if you're not you're going to be left behind. And so you picked up swimming in high school like
yeah,
right,
yeah.
and it's like you got the push to do it so early now year round and have it be the singular focus. So yeah, I would love for you to share just what you feel pulled to share when it comes to your own athletic journey and
Sure.
successes. Yeah.
Well, my passion was baseball. Like I loved baseball. I mean,
Mhm.
loved, and I had to work really, really hard at it. I got cut my freshman year of baseball. I went to an all guys Catholic school up in Cleveland, real high powered athletic school, and my sophomore year, tried out again. I was the last guy to make it, rode the bench a lot that year.
Mm.
Junior year, try out for the varsity. I'm going to get cut. They said, hey, would you be willing to play another year JV? And I was like, absolutely. I just wanted to play.
Mm.
And so did really well that year in JV, started swimming at the end of my junior year of high school, made Y Nationals, had to make a decision, ended up choosing swimming. But I played baseball this summer after my senior year of high school. And in fact, got scouted by the Philadelphia Phillies. And so I think back
That's
sometimes, what
amazing.
if, right?
Yeah.
But
What position did
I
you play? I don't think I've ever heard you talk about baseball. Yeah.
yeah,
That was Rob's sport too. Yeah.
yeah.
What
So
position did you play?
I was a decent pitcher and
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
pretty good hitting. So
And for
um,
those that don't know Bill, like humble, that's like just him being humble. That's how you roll, right? So, okay, so you played that, so you were still swimming and touching baseball all the way through high school? Like you played
you
all the
know,
way through? Oh, wow. Okay.
and
Yeah.
then swimming, I only swam my senior year of high school, and so I ended up making it to the Ohio High School State Championship meet. I finished dead last, and so I only applied to one college. I applied to Ohio State, and they said, sure, you can come down and walk on. And I was ill prepared, right? I didn't train in the summer. I didn't do any of that stuff. And so I got down there, and I lasted about 3 weeks. And some of it was maturity, some of it was preparation, some of it was I wasn't just not ready to be an athlete at that level. I wasn't ready to be a student at that
Mm.
level.
Mhm.
And so I kind of floundered for about a year and a half, and I left Ohio State and I moved back home, and I enrolled into a junior college, and I worked with my dad. So I was doing union work for about a year. But that summer, after my freshman year of college, I started training
Mm.
swimming, with a local coach who actually was a former Ohio State captain. And
Okay.
he kind of took me under his wing, and then I called probably 15 different schools and said, hey, could I have a shot? And the only coach that said yes was Wally Morton at Cleveland State.
Mm.
And so I went down and met with him, and he said, look, he goes, you'll probably never graduate from college and you'll probably never swim for us, but I'll give you a shot. And he didn't know it at the time. That was the greatest thing anybody could ever say, because anybody that knows me
Don't
knows,
tell
tell me
me
I
I
can't do
can't.
something, and I
Oh
will go
my
to the ends of the
goodness.
earth to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so at that point, I was a little bit more mature. I still didn't have academic confidence, but I had an opportunity. And,
Mhm.
and so having worked with my dad and doing, blue collar work, I just made some deals with myself in terms of things I was going to do and things I wasn't going to do. And
Mhm.
so I held myself to that standard, and, consider it like one of my proudest, accomplishments is being a college graduate. It means a lot, and it was really hard. It wasn't easy. And,
Mhm.
and swimming wise, Wally didn't have to give me a chance. And so, here we are. I've been coaching collegiately for 34 years, and I try to honor some of those things, in terms of second chances, opportunities,
Mhm.
finding kids in non-traditional settings. And so, not sure.
Truly, if you were to
Yeah,
look at your so for those that aren't familiar with swimming, there's this website Swim Cloud, right? That's like ranks and sorts and the trajectories. It's like your dots would be like starting here, and it's like, what would you do with you as a recruit, right? It's so fascinating. If you're comfortable, rewind and talk about that, because I think a lot of my own journey, it was soccer for me. I played club soccer all the way through my freshman year, rolling into my sophomore year, and it was like, which way do I go? I can't, like, like, which direction? And obviously chose swimming, but soccer was I would say my first passion. Like I loved
sure.
it. Like it's my soul sport. So what was it for you that pulled you into swimming and away from baseball?
It was probably, just kind of, a confluence of events where you just, and and I just kind of took to it. I will say this: when we moved out to the suburbs in the second grade, um, the neighborhood I lived in had a pool in the summer,
Mm,
and so the generation we were born into,
mm,
from sunrise till
totally.
sundown, you're out on your bike, and you're out. And so I
Mhm,
spent a lot of time at that pool. And again, it kind of goes back to that idea of safe spaces, right?
mhm,
And so there's just always been something safe about the pool and water, and
mhm.
my guess is on some level that's part of it, right?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
Same. Oh, and there's like I've had some conversations with coaches, swim coaches around just like that play and the like connection kinesthetically to the water and feel and like you can't teach that, right? Like the
Right.
free play in the water. And anyways, we don't need to digress down that, but that you
Sure.
just made me think of that. So you finished school. Did you know you wanted to be a coach? Like,
No, I
yeah.
had no intention of being a coach. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was getting close to graduation, and I had a group project with a gal, and we're getting close to graduation. She said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, I'm not sure." She said, "Well, my uncle's the CEO of Qantas Airlines, and he's looking for a young go-getter, and I gave him your name. Is that okay?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And so they had this position, and I was just kind of looking at the future. I was like, all right, San Francisco, Sydney, like this
Right.
could be pretty sweet. And about a week later, a guy that was 2 years ahead of me at Cleveland State was finishing a GA position, and he was finishing his MBA, and he called up. He said, "Hey, I'm finishing. My boss looking for somebody. I gave him your name. He wants to have lunch with you." And I said, "Sure." So I drove down Ashland University, which is about an
Okay.
hour south of Cleveland, and I had lunch. Scott Hernan was the coach. And at the end of the lunch, he said, "Well, would you like the job? It's yours if you want."
You didn't even
And
know you're going for an interview.
it
That's so
was,
funny.
yeah, a bird in the hand's worth two in the bush. And I said, yes.
Yeah,
No
cool.
clue what I was getting into. I mean, none. But I kind of look at, it's kind of, and to be clear, I count that in my 34 years of coaching. Those were
Mm.
my favorite 2 years of coaching ever, bar none. My first two
Mm.
years. So I got tuition, room, board, books, fees, and $180 a month. And he said, you can have your summers off.
Oh my
The
goodness.
first week that I started coaching, I knew I'd do that the rest of my life. And
What
so
was it
then the
about it? So
summer,
say there. Yeah, like
yeah,
hang right there. So what lit
yeah.
you up about those 2 years and how'd you know?
It just one, you were close in age to the kids that you were coaching, right?
Hmm.
That was the first piece. Second was you didn't have to leave something that you loved.
Mm.
Third was they looked at you as maybe you had some knowledge or wisdom to impart. When the truth is, when I look back, I had none, but I thought I had all of it, right?
Totally. That's so real. In
And
my
so
first years of teaching, same. Well, you
yeah,
learn more from them, really. I think that still maintains to be true. Like we
yeah.
learn so much guiding young people, just as much, if not more, than they learn from us. Yeah. Yeah.
I grew up in an era generation where you respected authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coaches, policemen, military, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
was. And so, like, I didn't, it's so funny. So many people have a perception of swimming coaches as, whistle and flip flops. And I just saw it as a calling or a vocation. I saw it as a way that you could make a difference in young people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it makes so much sense when I first heard your story of just getting that chance at Cleveland State and then like it just, yeah, like there's a core piece of that you gift to others, which is really cool to see that continue. So, okay, so you finish, you start coaching, and then we kind of came up. So as I was entering into college, you were Penn State. So I started my career at Michigan.
I
You
no,
were a
I
rival.
vividly remember.
And I
Yeah.
remember that Big Tens. We did win. I was like, I don't even know if we've ever talked about this. I was rowing on the erg because my shoulder was so like the surgeon was like, you can't swim. And so I was rowing on the erg during practice from December until February. It was the first time I touched the water. And then we raced, which we were racing y'all at Penn
Yeah.
State that year
Yeah.
for the title. So you head off. So did you go from Ashland to Penn State or did you bounce to other different places first? I don't know that part of your journey.
No, so I was 2 years at Ashland, and then my boss Scott Hernan. At the end of my second year, I was finishing up my graduate degree. He said, "Hey, I'm going to get out of coaching. My wife and I are moving down to Florida," and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And so I had an AD. His name was Dr. Alan Platt, and he hired me. I was 22 years old, and so I was the youngest
Oh, wow.
head coach.
Gosh.
Any school, any division, right? And so I was the head coach at Ashland for 2 years, men and
Okay.
the women. In addition to being, so I was the women's tennis coach. I was the
Oh, geez.
aquatics director. I was the men's and women's swimming coach. I drove the men's golf team,
This is so funny.
and so
That remains to be true. What division is Ashland?
that was Division two. Yeah,
Yeah, division. That's so common. I was going to say that's very common in Division
yeah.
Two and Three in some places where they just wear all the hats. Like
Oh,
it's
it was
yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, awesome.
That's cool. Okay.
And then, we had a lot of success in a pretty short amount of time. I mean, like, I think my first year with the guys, we didn't have an NC2A qualifier. The next year, we were fifth in the country.
Wow.
And so, in the summers in graduate school, I was allowed to, he gave me my summers off. So I went all over the country. I learned from every coach I could. I slept on couches. I worked camps and clinics for free.
Mm.
And so I built a really strong network. And the summer after my second year at Ashland, I was out on the road recruiting. And I went to lunch with a couple coaches. And one of the coaches was the men's head coach at Penn State, Peter Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And two of my friends said, Pete, you're looking for somebody, you should talk to this guy. And, I get back a week or two later, get a phone call, and, Pete brought me out and I interviewed for the position. And I think I had three questions for him, right? Like, do we have the full scholarship amount? Do we have access to long course water and something else? He's like, absolutely.
And the rest is figure outable. Like, that's it, right?
And actually, I took a pay cut. As the head coach at Penn State, I made $28,000.
Wow.
I went to at Ashland. At Penn State, as the men's assistant at Penn State, I made $26,000. But I couldn't get out there quick enough. Yeah. I said, no disrespect to Ashland. I was just like, yep, I'll take it.
That's
right?
Amazing.
And I was Pete's assistant for 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's so cool. And you're bringing me, I was listening to a conversation earlier where they were talking about, it was a business podcast, but they were talking about alignment first. And like when you're operating out of alignment, then these opportunities just unfurl. And that just describes what you're like following your joy and passion, and then doors open. It's like, yes, like I'll go do this thing. So now you've been at, is it 17 years? Has it been that you, after spending time at Penn State, been at Ohio State for 17? Is that correct?
Yeah, I was at Penn State for 13. Next year will be my 18th at Ohio State.
18th. So fun. And you first came in as women's head and now are director overseeing the entire program.
Yes. I coached just the women for 9 years.
Okay. Yeah. So now I'll share more details in the bio with all this, and then link to be able to get, like, have people reach you where they want, or maybe you don't, because I know you're
absolutely
so
busy.
Questions that they may have, or because it's like shifting gears to being in this position and your vantage point, and also all the while raising kids. You have 4 kids, and we were just talking before we hit record about your youngest is graduating high school this year, and so like this even from your own journey. So if you think of your own journey through sports and athletics, and then your journey as you were literally raising kids and as you were growing as a coach, right? How did those two pieces, like your world as a coach and growing in that space, and then as an athlete, impact how you raised your own kids?
It's kind of ironic we're talking about this today, because I was driving home yesterday, and for whatever reason, I was thinking that the women's coach at Penn State before I took over the women was a guy by the name of Bob Krimmel. And Bob told me once that college coaches are like Disneyland dads, that they get home and everything's just, everything's perfect there. And they're not there for the real stuff, right? And I was a Disneyland dad for a long time.
I'm laughing because early mornings, drop-offs, dinner time, like solo, right? Like as a wife of a coach. Yes.
Right. And so like when you say raising kids, like I am blessed. My wife and I, we've been together for 35 years. We met in college. She swam at Cleveland State, and like there's something special about a coach's significant other, because you're right, it is a lot of birthdays going solo and missed anniversaries and vacations cut short and all those things. I mean, there's a cost that goes along with this life, and and so you're in it together, and but I consider it a blessing that my children were involved in athletics, because of just all the wonderful things I think that athletics can teach, and I do believe that athletics are a vehicle to build skill, and that skill is transferable.
Totally.
And so now, that being said, I was a crazy sports dad with our oldest son, like out of my mind.
Well, my tagline on Instagram is pausing you here to share the intention, like one of the intentions, many of the space is like, right now the movement's like parents are the problem and we're all crazy and psycho and unhinged, and like or it's the total opposite of it's a coach's fault. Like it's just such binary, like it's who we gonna blame. And I just think, like, especially in the last decade with the work I've done in my own journey and understanding nervous systems and then the work that we do and just teaching this, it's like we're humans. Like, and yeah, we get hooked big time, especially when it comes to our kids. But if we're not talking about that, then there's shame. And then it's like, how does anything ever move? Like, how does it? So I appreciate, I was going to ask you in a little bit, but like right here is a great place of like, so like honoring places and spaces, if you could go back now, or you might have not shown up in the same way, right? Like what you've learned since when you use that language to describe how you showed up for your son, for your oldest.
Well,
so yeah, take us there.
We always approached athletics and opportunities from a place of gratitude. So the kids always knew to show up early and to stay late and to say thank you. Didn't matter if we won or if we lost. And I should have asked more questions. So what I'll miss the most about being a sports dad is the car rides, right? Like it wasn't even the actual contest.
That's so real.
It was, and when you choose to have 4 children, seldom do you get one-on-one time. And so, people bemoan the fact that travel baseball is so expensive or all encompassing. But the truth is I would pay that times 10 to spend 4 hours in the car driving to the ballpark and then coming back
so
and
real.
not talking about the game, right? Like, and so, but when I think about our oldest son, like I would just be coaching him and we'd be breaking down every game. And like, instead of just saying like, hey, what did you think? Or, and like,
it's
just,
so,
and
it's hard.
learned.
Yeah, no, so I'm with you. And we like learning as we go too. And I say to my oldest, I'm sorry, we're learning on you and with you. And also like, I've never done this before, like parenting. And you sit on, that's the thing is like you sit on, you clearly see how to sustain excellence at such a high level. Like that is just like part of how you move through the world and the cultures that you help to build. And so to take all the knowledge and the wisdom, it's like like it makes sense while you're wanting to bring that, and the intention behind it, right, is like, I want to help my kids thrive. And what can get lost in that is this even matching what they want, right? Like, is this something that they're wanting, or am I wanting this more for them than they're wanting it for themselves? Yeah, it's like, that's the stuff that's real though, like that we're going through as parents. I don't think we talk about.
Like, absolutely. Yeah.
Bringing our own stuff. Like, how do we know? So if you could go back and talk to that young version of you, that father, like what wisdom would you offer, knowing that you were doing the best that you could at the time?
Trying to separate my stuff from their stuff, right? Like is him being a starter more important to me, or is it more important to him, right? I think back like how my kids would get confused when they would lose a ball game and I would be effusive in the praise and how hard they played, and there was a disconnect. Like, how come you're giving me positive feedback when we lost, like versus maybe you won and it wasn't your best showing, right?
Oh my
and
gosh.
so
Yeah, but that's because that's counterculture. But that's where, would you say like that wisdom and the places and spaces you climbed into there were really powerful? Like that's really,
my goodness. Process trumps outcome every day of the week.
Say that louder. Or maybe not louder, but let's repeat that. I think that's one of the things that is it's critical, and it's so easy to get hooked into whatever the sport is, like particularly now with all the changes. And so I know that people like in kind of preparing for these conversations, letting people know. I got I don't know if Jenny Arndt. So she was at Michigan. So you probably recruited her or against her, right? So she's helping me behind the scenes, like procure lists of questions to ask. And like one of them is going to be like about the NIL and just the pressure there and the changing landscape. And so it's hard when you're navigating the space, right, to stay connected to what truly matters and be able to put our own stuff down. And also recognize that there are limited spaces, actually. Like, there are limited roster spots and all those things. And that at the end of the day, clinging to those and gripping those and having that be the sole focus is actually not even what's going to get you there, right? It's the process and focusing on the process. Yeah. Yeah. So like when you're teaching that, what does that sound like, right? When you're in the car on the ride home? Like, how do you reinforce that? First, you got to unhook your own self from the loss. Right.
Well, it took me a long time with my oldest, right? Because he was starting to shut down and withdraw, but that was my stuff. That wasn't his. And so then I had to learn to take a step back and just be a dad, right? Like
Mhm.
maybe we're not talking about the game, but maybe we circle back to it because he brings it back, not
Right.
me. And
Mhm.
then he says, "What do you think?" And then I have to get permission. Like, do you want me to tell you what I really think?
Mhm.
And the answer is yes, right? And then being mindful of how I say it, right?
Totally.
Versus kind of being in attack mode, and that's not going to fix anything. And so
No.
just yeah,
And that also listening to Michael Gervais, sports psychologist, high performance psychologist, who worked with the Seattle Seahawks for a while. Like he has the podcast Finding Mastery. I love learning from him, and he talks about his own son and the car ride with him. And it was refreshing to hear him that like it's okay to actually talk about it because you also hear this like it's all or nothing. Like don't go overboard, but like so don't bring it up. It's like what? How do we? So letting what I'm hearing you say is letting your kid lead, like letting them come to you or asking even consent and permission. Like, do you want to hear what I have to say? I found myself with that as well, asking
sure.
my daughter. And sometimes she's like, no, not right now or not at
Right,
all.
right, right.
And that's
Yeah,
okay.
that is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and also I still like my kids play hockey. I can't help them, but I can see attitude and thank yous and the things that actually are really aligned with our values that matter most, right? And so I have a lot to say about those things. So
Body
yeah,
language,
yeah,
showboating, making people around you better. Like,
yes,
like we don't know how, but we know that.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I still call it dribbling, but I did hear an announcer once say it was dribbling, and I was like, anyways, I don't need to. I'm just still learning a lot. So okay, so you're parenting your own kids, and I think the other piece I want to pause and honor is that I think as parents we forget coaches are human. Like the hooking and the flooding emotionally and just all the things like the time, the energy, the money we're spending, the karma, like all the stuff, right, that it takes to support our kids that we're choosing to do and are getting to do. And then in that, I think sometimes we lose that coaches are humans. They have their own families. Like they're spending probably more time sometimes with the kids that they're leading than their own children. Yeah. So just
And there's
what
some guilt that goes with that, right? Like just
Mhm,
yeah, like you have to make choices.
mhm,
And sometimes as a young coach, it's an all or nothing. I'm going to go all in here or all in
mhm.
there. And the truth is, I'm not a big fan of the word balance, but I heard a word that resonated with me, and it's blend,
Yes, I
right?
love
And
it.
so like just blending those passions and blending the things that you love, and
Mhm.
and that's not easy to do. I
It,
will say this, kind of going backward, you know, having four kids, every one of them is significantly different,
mhm.
right? Like, and so in particular, our second oldest son, he was diagnosed pretty late in life with a learning disability. And
Mhm.
so there was a lot of guilt with my wife and I, and that, how could we miss this? And did we set him up for failure?
Mm.
And so as we went through that journey, and it was really at the beginning of high school, um, went through a therapist, and she had recommended family counseling. And I just remember when I heard that, I was pissed. I was like, well, I don't have the issue. Like he's got the issue, right? And we did do family counseling, and what I found is that you had to create the environment, you had to be the advocate, because
Mm.
if not you, then who?
Mhm.
And so the guilt that goes back with that is that I think sometimes kids will get labeled or marginalized
Mhm.
if they don't fit into whatever we think is like a normal box.
Mhm.
And so, that going through that experience made me a way better coach. And I thought back of all the people that I just missed on
Mm.
because they didn't fit into that box. And you would have thought with my experience and background, that I wouldn't have, and I did.
Mm.
Right. And so, I wouldn't say I get it right all the time now, but
No,
yeah,
you
that
learn
was
that. That's the other piece. Is like, how does parenting then inform the coaching, right? I remember early in my teaching, when I was in the classroom, a parent saying to me, if you don't get it, you don't have kids." And I was like, "The hell, I don't get it. Like, are you kidding me? I love these kids. This is my entire world." And there's just a perspective, like anything in life, where you have this lived experience that opens up a new way of seeing things and a new dimension. And it sounds like raising your kids and just along this parenting journey paid, pulled into how you see the world. So was there anything other ways that your eyes have opened being a parent and now knowing you're also like you've got these young people, right? It's like 17 to 20,
Yeah.
young 20s that are in your care. How has parenting shaped how you show up to work?
Well, how about just the differences between guys and girls? Like not
Mhm.
just each child is a little bit different. How about guys and girls? And
Mhm.
so, um, I mean, the science just says that the males lag their female counterparts to the degree of about 20%
Mhm.
physically, mentally, emotionally. And so if you have two 18-year-olds, one's a guy, one's a girl, and you're treating them the same, you are
Mhm.
missing.
Mhm.
And probably one of the worst jobs of coaching I ever did was I coached just the women at Penn State as a head coach for 3 years. Then we combined the program, and I emasculated those guys because I was
Mhm.
constantly comparing them to the experience I had with the girls. Why can't our GPA be as good? Why can't we
Mhm.
and I look back now, I'm like, holy smokes, talk about a miss.
Mhm.
But I had an assistant coach said once, I don't think you could ever be a parent and be a head coach because it required too much time.
Mhm.
And I actually feel the opposite all these years later. Like, I'm not sure you can without, right? Like you can
Mhm.
obviously, but
Mhm.
man, there's going to be some things you miss on.
Yeah, but that
And
perspective, it's so
yeah,
real. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And being able to see just like the humanity, so developmental milestones, differences there, and then just being able to like have the ability to empathize with parents. And so as parents that are listening, maybe they have college age kids or they're getting near that space. Well, I start to see a shift, at least if I think of my own experience in swimming. My parents were with me at meets. We were in hotel rooms, like, I was swimming for a club. We would travel together to meets, but my parents would still be there. My mom would still be there. Versus hockey's a little bit different. And so my daughter's kind of peeled off and been a little bit more independent than I would say I was. But then there comes
sure.
this leap of like sending your kid to school and the role of parent, 18, it's like you're no longer allowed to have conversations that you could have before. And so what would paint that picture of how does the role of parent shift when you have an athlete that's now entering into college?
It's like I don't think there's ever been a tougher time to be a parent. I don't think there's ever been a better time to be a parent,
Mm,
right? And so like the advice I always give to our parents is your son or daughter better than anyone in the world.
mm,
And so you're going to know when you hear their voice where they're at. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they struggling? And don't ever be afraid to reach out and
mhm,
ask. Now sometimes the kids get upset. Now what I won't do is if a parent calls and they say, don't tell Junior that I called, I'll just I'll give clear boundaries, say, we'll do that this time and this time only. But
mm.
afterwards, this is going to be a conversation, between all of us. And
We're a
so
team. Yeah.
yeah, the idea is always to support, the young person. And
But really
so
the parent's role takes like it's like you send your kid away and then, oh, what's my space? What is my role?
right.
And like, how are they doing? So what would you say it aligned, not that there's one right way. I don't believe that. And I think each coaching staff probably has their own preferences, even probably on your staff. Like there's
Oh, absolutely.
differences
Yeah.
of what kind of relationship, but what is for a parent that has no idea. Maybe they weren't a collegiate athlete. Like what is a parent's role in
Well,
a
I tell the
program?
parents that we're not going to treat them like a mushroom, right? Which is keep them in the
The
dark and
dark.
keep them newer. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't go to the other side of it, right? Like we probably
Mhm.
don't give out as much information as we could or we should, but
Like
we
you're
leave.
used to with club, right? That's kind
Right.
of what I'm getting at. It's like you're used to
Yeah.
just the pulse and the rhythm of the being in the know, and then
Yeah.
you make this shift. Yeah.
We're certainly transparent. We're not trying to hide anything, but we also try to empower, you know, our our our, our college age student
Mhm.
athletes to
Becoming,
advocate
it's
for
their
themselves.
process.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of. And so that process is it can be challenging, right? And it
Hmm.
can take time and it evolves and it's a little bit different for everybody.
Hmm. That's so real. When you look at, like, this is broad strokes, but you look at those athletes who've adjusted and transitioned well, like successfully, and that's not perfectly, right? But
Yeah.
successfully, what are some of the common skills they come to school with?
I think a little bit of a sense of independence. I think definitely curiosity.
Hmm.
I think the kids that are lifelong learners and they model behavior of people around them who have been successful, whether that's academically, athletically, socially.
Mm.
Um, People that are a little bit adventurous, right? Like they're kind of again, back to curiosity, they're curious about, well,
Hmm.
why is it this way? Or why did this person have success? Or I
Hmm.
wonder, right? As opposed to really clinging to those old habits, ideas, right? Getting out of that comfort zone. And that's hard, right?
Mm.
That is not easy.
That was so hard for me from that first year. There was a lot going on personally in that transitional time, but that idea of like, this is not what Lemieux wrote. Like, how do I, right? Like that clinging, absolutely. So an open-mindedness, curiosity, independence. Yeah. And it's like, as a parent, then we back it up and we're like, okay, how can I support that development so that they're ready? It's so hard. Like, you want to protect them. I was joking in another conversation that after, Mia's heart surgery, I was like, so I'm just going to bubble wrap my kids literally, and like, they're not going anywhere. And her surgeon, her cardiologist, not her surgeon, was like, you will let her be a kid. Like, she's like boss lady at Children's. So I was like, yes, ma'am. Oh, that means I have to do my work because I don't want to let them fall, right? But that's literally the essence of what I do in the world, is trying to help people learn how to rise, right? Like to develop these
This will
skills.
no judgment here, but so our daughter's out in the backyard. She's climbing a tree. She gets herself up pretty high, and she gets stuck. Right. My wife is like, "Oh, I'm going to go let her out," and I was like, "No, like, go let her figure it out." And she was
Yeah.
probably maybe like 7 years old, right? And she's probably 10 or 12 feet off the ground. And I mean, she's stuck and she can't find a branch around her. And my wife's in the house crying.
No,
And,
just
and sure as heck, Anna gets out of the tree. And neither of us kind of let anything on. And she comes in the house. I go, man, that was awesome. I go, like, how you got out of the tree. Like, that was really cool.
my
And
gosh.
we never really kind of talked to her, but like, she's a fiercely independent young lady who can figure stuff out on her
And she
own.
trusts herself. Well, that's so real.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think like and we can edit this if we need to, but I think I knew her name was Anna. And I also reference it as Anne because that's how it's written in your bio. So I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
maybe all these years I've been saying Anna and it's
No, no,
wrong.
no.
It's
You said
Anna.
Anna. Yeah.
Then we
Yeah.
need to correct that on the OSU website.
Okay. I'll check
Yes.
it.
Um, no, that is I love that. And that is like I hope that through my work I've allowed my kids to do the same. My mom will come by and be like, "Why are these kids never wearing shoes? Like, why are they outside just running around?" And I'm like, because that's part of it. And it takes though, like your wife, I can relate to that, like putting down our own stuff to literally get out of the way, to let them explore an adventure so that they can trust themselves because
Yeah.
ultimately they're going to fall. So, yeah, oh my gosh, that's so funny. I can see, like, does she remember that story, Anna?
I don't know if she does. You know
You
what?
totally need to tell
She,
her that.
yeah, she's back. She graduated 2 weeks ago. She's back at home. She's getting ready to take the GRE. She's going to go to PA school.
Oh,
And
cool. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What's
Oh, that's
been
so fun.
really cool though is our youngest, Will, who's a senior now,
Yeah.
is he's had the experience of watching his three older siblings and their successes and their failures.
Hmm.
And so he had a little bit of this of an epiphany. Anna lived at home the summer between her freshman sophomore year of college, and she's just a really disciplined kid. And Will goes, man, she works really hard and she studies really hard. And like, as much as we as parents can say, like,
Oh,
all right, you need to study, you need
yeah.
to do this.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's where the light bulb went on for him, was like, oh, that's why she's
Hmm.
valedictorian. That's why she's, yeah, yeah.
That's so real. And also, like his wiring at that age is way more tuned to his peers and his sister than what we say, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So when we think about this idea of like all blending all of your experiences and we think about like the state of sport, if you will, it's like
Hmm.
there's so much changing. I think every day there's just continually like new rulings before the real ruling when it comes to this house case. And like, what do you think when it comes to sport parents? So, what are we getting right? I know this is like, there's so many different individuals, but broad strokes, like where are we really like moving toward alignment to help our kids like know that they can do hard things and focus on process and essentially live successful lives using sport as this vehicle. And then where are we missing? Like where are we getting in our own way or where can we do it a little bit better? Yeah.
Why? To me, it goes back to transparency and authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it's not a clear picture. So I don't know if you know this, but like on the West Coast, In-N-Out Burger,
Mm-hmm.
there's a secret menu. There's the menu on the wall,
Oh, I
but then
didn't know there's a secret menu.
oh yeah,
I
you
have
can
no
go up
idea.
and you order something animal style. It doesn't say animal style on any menu,
Right.
right?
You just
But
have to
there's
know.
animal style,
Right.
right?
Okay.
And so like as we as sports parents go through this journey, there's a secret menu.
Mm.
And like there's one in hockey, there's one in swimming, there's one in baseball. And so if you don't know the nuances of those sports,
It's
how
so true. It's so true.
right? Like
Yeah.
yeah,
But how do we
so like
find that, right? Without this fear of
advice,
missing out, right? Like the
yeah,
FOMO that kicks in, and you're just like, that is another intention of the space. Is I look around at my network, and even as I'm compiling, I'm like, look at your credentials, right? And I'm like, and I have like Lindsay Mintenko is coming on, like former national team director,
yeah,
like all the like the lists of the people in the spaces that I have access to, the connections. I'm lucky. I'm blessed. Not everyone has that access. So part of this is like pulling in so we can plug in and learn. Like, how do we learn? How do we learn about a secret menu? You learn as you go. Like, you surround yourself with mentors. I think for us, it's being okay being the beginner and saying like I don't really know, can you help us
yeah.
learn, like at every stage we're like, whoa, what are your thoughts here, could you help, do you have any suggestions? And through that you start to discover the secret menu. I don't know if we have it figured out there though. but
Well,
yeah, what would you
so
say?
think about recruiting, right? Most
Mm.
people think recruiting is sales. It's not. It's matchmaking.
Mm.
If I have to convince somebody to come here, it's probably not the right place.
Mm-hmm.
But then you bear a huge risk if you're just really genuine and say like, this is who we are, right? Here's
Mm-hmm.
the good, here's the bad, here's the ugly. At the end of the day, we want people that are a great fit or a great match.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that because then they show up and they have the experience that you told them that they were going to have.
Totally. Yeah, I didn't sell one thing. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And show up with a different. Yeah. So what are you like? What are your suggestions, knowing what you know from the perspective that you have of like helping parents to navigate, like literally discover the secret menu, figure it out. Like, what's the role when it comes to finding that next fit, or even if college athletics is like competing in the NC2A, I hope that there's this surge of club sports, like opportunities for that to open. Because sports, like, it's so sad if it ends at 18. Like, what? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, what would be your suggestions when it comes to things that maybe parents, like guideposts or things that maybe parents might not know when it comes to that process of navigating, recruiting, and just trying to find their way if college is a good fit?
Well, I think one, there's a place and a level for everyone. And it kind of goes back to that idea with our oldest son. Am I projecting my stuff on him? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do I, as a parent, want the bumper sticker on my car to say my kid goes to that school? Or do
Yeah.
I want my kid to be happy? Right. And see, here's the hardest part is that it's 16, 17, 18. Do you really know what's going to make you happy?
It's so
I mean,
hard.
you have to have a crystal ball to look at a future version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be pretty honest about strengths, weaknesses, likes, dislikes. And it's not just the kid's decision. It's the
Mm-hmm.
biggest decision to that point in their life, but they have to have it with some guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an elite athlete that got to a certain point in their career, and I thought they were making a mistake. And I had a great relationship with the parents. And we're talking, and I called up and I said, I think your son's making a big mistake. And he goes, no, I agree. My wife and I talked about, we think he's making a big mistake as well, but he's an adult. And I said, with all due respect, adults don't stay up till 3 a.m. playing video games.
Mm.
So let's help him make a good decision.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it ended up working out fine, but they still, our kids still need us.
Totally. And that goes into like, even when you're talking about the development now, that recent research is like not just 26 for for this prefrontal cortex to be fully developed, but even they're thinking later into like early 30s.
Yes.
So that's my joke in my house is like, we've held off on social media, minus my daughter having an account on my phone because it's part of prep school recruiting, which
Oh yeah.
anyways, like
Yeah.
I digress. But this idea of holding strong, and I say my role is to help you. And it's like almost like they're taking more accountability and ours will taper off. So it's like these two curves going in different directions where at some point, right, we're peeling back the layers of support, but not completely because their brain it isn't fully developed. Like
Right.
there is some guardrail, so we can pull them back as they grow. But yeah, no, that's it. It's
I
and
will.
that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'll say life gets pretty fun at like, so our kids are 25, 23, 21, and 18. And so, Mother's Day was Sunday and everybody's over the house and in fact, everybody's moved back to the house at least for a
Which that
short
makes my
period of
mom
time.
heart like happy though a little bit
Oh, I
because
know
my
my wife's
babies,
heart is full, but like there was a point at
your
the end of the
house
day
is
where I'm
full.
like,
Well, the
yeah,
food bill goes back up. Oh
yeah,
my gosh, it's
yeah,
so
yeah.
real.
Today was garbage day and we had a lot of garbage. Yeah,
My
yeah,
goodness.
exactly.
I've cut you off. You were saying so this weekend, the home for the holidays. We were talking about the development of the brain and support, and
Just
it gets
just
pretty
that
fun.
one
Yeah.
one it gets really fun, but two, it doesn't stop. Meaning like
Yeah.
development, right? And like
Mhm.
there has to be a true north, or there has to be a home, or there has to be a safe space, and you know,
That's exactly it. And actually, I'm in the process too of like building out a space for deeper dives, kind of talking about the scale, like for parents, like a I don't want to say course, that just sounds too school like, but a place to do some deeper exploration and integration. And in that is like the whole purpose of it is what are your values? Like similar to the work we've done, like what matters most? And then are you in alignment? And if you're not in alignment, in your alignment, like we get hooked onto this idea of what success is without even challenging. Like you talk about the bumper sticker. That is a conversation I've had so many times where it's like, I want to go D1 and that's it. And it's like, it's really tricky, like not just swimming, like all sports to ride a bench and like not be an impact player. Like, are you ready for that? Right? Like here's a different experience. And a lot of times it's letting go and challenging the ideal of like, why do I even want that? Do I even want that? Like, what is
right?
it that what matters most to me? And when we were visiting Shattuck, St. Mary's, which is a school that my daughter was looking at, Brianna Decker, who's a Hall of Fame, like incredible skater for the US, and she's a coach there. And she was saying in her guidance with young people, she's like, it's about what's the best experience, like winning national championship, D3, D1, like winning, like being part of winning teams and winning cultures and having that experience is like its own thing, right? Whether it's an Olympic gold medal or a national championship. And I can speak to that. Like that, if you forced me to pinpoint the experience that was like, if I had to pick one, it would be that team
Yeah,
experience. Not,
yeah.
and that's like counter what anyone would think. Olympic gold medal versus national championship. Like, yeah, that's it.
Well, and,
So,
and 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 the kids that have had success, right, and they achieve success, then afterwards they're like, I would have thought I would have felt
oh
differently,
my
right?
gosh, you know
Like
that's
no,
my
I'm still that
story.
same person.
I'm still
Yeah,
me. You go,
yeah,
wait, what, this is
yeah,
it? So, well, and talk about winning. I mean, like that's something we can start to land the plane here, but the culture that you have built and the teams and the championships and all that, like there's so much, right? We see the surface, the iceberg, the top of the iceberg are those podium moments, and then all that goes into it. What would you say, like, what have those experiences taught you? And I'll just let you take that wherever you want to go. Yeah.
that as cliche as it is to say the journey is the reward, and
Totally.
that I don't even enjoy meets anymore. Like, but I love the process, right? And I love, before we started working with you, Sam, we worked with a guy named Tim Kite,
Hmm.
right? And Tim talked about that improvement happens at the edge of your ability,
Hmm.
and that feeling at the edge of your ability is productive discomfort.
Hmm.
And we as humans aren't wired for that. That's not human nature. And so to be able to build a relationship and the trust it takes to have somebody work at the edge of their ability on a
Hmm.
consistent basis and do things they never thought they could do, like that
It's
is
it.
everything,
It's
right?
it.
Yeah,
It's it. Like just mic drop that because that's it. And
yeah,
I think that the way that empowers someone and the way that serves and captures the essence of sport as the vehicle for like this, it's a vehicle that we get to jump into to discover the magic in ourselves and hone the skill set that we can take with us forever. It's like part of, to bring it back, not to bring the energy down, but to a real life moment of Mia being in the hospital. Like I literally, I had sets that were coming up in my mind, reminding me like you can do hard things, even when you think you cannot go one more rep. Like that is the place that I actually went to when my daughter was on life support, right? For those 7 days fighting for her life. It was like, I know I can do hard things and I'm going to do one foot in front of the other. And I've been here before. And like that, how do you like that experience being able to carry that with me in the hardest moment of my life was like, I didn't know a sport was training me for that. I was just chasing go faster and
Well,
get to
and
the next level meet. But
yeah,
yeah,
and when it's 6 in the morning and like your coach is telling you that, you're like, okay, all right.
yeah,
But then, the number of kids that reach out years later and say, it's true.
so
Like,
true. And
like in
yeah,
my
sorry.
social group, like the things people complain about, and I just laugh. Like this isn't,
Yeah.
yeah, like this isn't tough.
No.
Yeah.
Well, the level of no, I was just writing preparing posts, and we can really end on this. You appreciate the set Lemieux dropped down. It was like 3/500th best average. That was one of the test sets he loved to roll out on like 8 minutes. And I'm telling you, I'd be like, it'd be one of two ways. I'd be going like 5:30s, and he would be ready to walk up the pool deck, this short course yards,
Yep.
or I'd be going like 4:48s from a push, like just three of them. Like
Yep.
it was no in between at that time, which is partly why I'm doing the work I'm doing now in the world, is
Yep.
to help
Yep.
people that get stuck in that. But it was like, but that or like the 5 250s, you go back to that, and it's like, well, what about it? It wasn't about the set. It was about doing the thing you didn't think you could do and having someone hold belief in front of you and challenge you to get to that edge, like what Tim talks about, that discomfort right there, and be able to move through it's everything. So,
What's
oh,
crazy is like as a coach being steady on the deck, whether it's 5:30 or 4:48,
oh
right? And like that's hard to do. But like when you see the 4:48s and you come in the office suite afterwards and you see the other coach, like, holy smoke, you should have seen Arsenault today,
my
right?
God.
Like, woo,
Oh, but
yeah.
I didn't know that from him. Well, when I was dropping, and it was like he didn't know what way it would go when he dropped the set. He's like, "What's it going to be today?" It's like, oh my gosh. Anyways, yeah. Oh, miss him. So I could talk to you forever. We know that. What would you say? Like last question here, and we'll close on this. Is just permission slips that parents can give themselves as they're doing it. They're in it, right? Whether it's young, like kids are young still, or they're along for the ride, not mushrooms, but not as involved as they once were. And even those that are, I have parents in my circle who I know will be tuning in, whose kids are just making it to leagues, right? Like they're adventuring into new spaces where it's all business. Yeah. So what permission slips would you grant to parents, knowing
Uh,
that you know?
I had mentioned before kind of how I got into swimming and grew up in a dysfunctional home. And I think back and give a ton of grace to my parents. They're doing
Mm-hmm.
the best they could with the skills they had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it just and when you're in it as a parent, especially going places and doing things you've never done before, like
Trying to find the secret menu. I'm like, now I'm like,
right,
I need to go to
right, yeah.
California to
So it's,
order.
I mean, it literally is grace and space, right? Like
Yes.
just sometimes you got to actually create space between you and the event and then just, giving yourself some grace. I'm doing the best I can. Like
Yeah.
this, yeah.
That's absolutely it. Well, yes, we'll wrap there. Thank you so much for this conversation and for the time and energy
Sam,
pouring into it. Yeah.
always good to see you. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.